welcome to today's session. I'm Shrija Santanam, working as a community manager with DCKAP. First of all, thank you so much everyone for registering to Magento Master Virtual Series 6th edition with our Magento Master Rafael Corrêa Gomes. And thank you, Rafael, for accepting our invitation and honoring our stage and for your insightful session. DCKAP has been actively organizing Magento meetups for more than 5 years. So, however, during this lockdown, that has been affected at least a quarter of population. We were looking for some means to organize Magento meetups without any hiccups. So, our idea was to rope in Magento masters and ask them to share their insights with people across the globe through virtual meetups. So our first virtual meetup happened in April, 2 months ago, and it was indeed a great success. So that spirit made us think, why not facilitate such meetups frequently? And we have hosted around like 5 Magento Master series with Magento Masters on different topics catering to the Magento platform. So here we are at our sixth series with Rafael Magento Masters Virtual Series. So Magento Master Virtual Series is a bi-weekly event, especially for Magento community across the industry. Also, I will like to use this opportunity to give you guys a brief intro about DCKAP and how as a community we are contributing to the Magento as well as the whole e-commerce fraternity. And the DCKAP is a digital commerce agency specializing in building e-commerce storefronts for clients abroad, and we specialize in Magento, Shopify, and BigCommerce. Also, with over 15 plus years of experience in the industry, we have developed a handful of products that allow brands and businesses to unleash their full potential. Productimize is one of our product customization platform. Clorus, an automated integration tool between ERP, CRM, and e-commerce stores. FlexiPIM, a product information management platform, and QATouch, a smart test management platform. All that said, I don't want to hold off you guys from here out from the capitative session by our wonderful speaker lined up for this day. And I'm sure that you will have a great learning and experience tonight. And it's my honor to welcome Rafael. And Rafael is an IT director at Lee Site, and he's a Magento Master at 2018, and he's 1-2x Innovation Lab winner, and in Magento Lab, and he's a Magento Meetup organizer and top 50 contributors of 2017, 2018, and 2019 for past 3 years. And he is very much passionate about e-commerce solution and open source technologies. And he has been leading teams, sharing knowledge, and working across different countries for more than 10 years. And it's our pleasure to have you in our Magento Master Virtual Series, Rafael. And over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for introducing me. And let me share my screen. Well, today I will share with you the deploy strategy that I developed between in these last years. So how I decided to apply some determined technology and how it worked for me. So the main points will be, the main goal will be not be afraid anymore to do the deploys. So to do the deploys more confidently and without frictions. And how to make everyone in the team do the same deploy with the same quality. So don't have different deploys running with different commands. And how you can deliver more with less downtime or zero downtime. And with that, you are going to reduce your costs. So you're going to be able to deliver more quality and also more features, and your clients don't be afraid to have the deploy and struggling with some deploy issue in the middle of the way, and then probably increasing the costs. So Also, how you can start today. So how you can start to put this strategy in your workflow today and have the advantage of this, not the entire strategy, but at least the minimal strategy to have your deploy optimized. Well, I will start to explain when and why I decided to have a different strategy and apply something different in my workflow. I saw a lot of repetitive process. So after Magento 1, when we started to develop Magento 2, it was 4 years ago, more or less, and I saw different commands to be executed every time. And there are some variations for sure, but most of them must be executed every time. And even with this variation is a repetitive process. So how my team could be more focused into deliver more creative things in more strategical things instead of repetitive process. And many developers were running unnecessary commands. So when you don't have, for example, database changes, you don't need to execute the setup upgrade. So many developers were running the same script in every scope. So it was something bad that increased the cost to deploy something new to the clients too. And as I said, the developers were running differently. So in different order. So some developers run the cache flush before some compilation, and some other developers before. So we didn't have consistency in the teams before. And also a long time to having they store out. So we had the store out in the beginning for between 10 and 30 minutes when you struggle with something. So it was a very long time. Today is like when we need to have downtime, it's something like less than 1 minute is some seconds, it's like 10 seconds. And it was very harder to have the rollback too. So when we need to roll back some chains, it was very hard to set up. Sometimes the time was twice the time. So instead of 30 minutes, it take too long. So, and also after had at least the minimal optimized, we had an expensive pipelines because we were using Bitbucket pipelines when I started to optimize the deployment workflow. And the Bitbucket pipelines were using the price is per minute executed. So the price started to increase. And the challenges with these roadblocks. Well, I would like to apply something that we can keep continuously improving. So something that we don't need to shut down and then turn on a new strategy and train the team for 1 week and have a huge documentation about the branch strategy and about everything. I would like to propose something to my team that can bring the facility to be involved in the system, and also to have the developer have confidence to deploy something and to set up the environment. So this must be a resilient tool, a tool that can be adapted to different projects, a tool that I can use it to Magento 1 or Magento 2, because I had both of them. Until nowadays, I have both of them. And also that I could apply to different scopes. So I could run the same command and had different scope analyzed. For example, do I need some database change, or do I have some database change or not? And then do what I need to do. And I don't need to check this first and then execute the specific commands. This must be a developer friendly tool too. So very easy to start, very easy to use, and not something that I need a huge documentation about it. So something that is easy to understand self. And to reduce the training. So don't have a week to train the developers in my team, and just have a tool to be used as soon as possible. And and also I wanted to have the capability to my junior developers deploy something to their environments when it's the case. So they don't need to ask someone to deploy something to their own environment and to do tests, or also to have, for example, the database dump from UAT, which is the environment to test. And also something so good that I could do the capability to deploy something to my PMs. So the PMs could have the release pre-approved with all the features, and then with just one click, put, for example, in the UAT environment to be tested by the client. And as the team uses Slack, I think most of you also use Slack. So must be something that can notify and the specific channels about the deploy and who is deploying. If it is the pipelines deploying or some developer running locally common to deploy something. So I had to think about it. And also something that must be integrated with Mage Module, because some of the clients are Mage Module, so must be integrated to be able to flush the services there. And I don't need to run the command to deploy, and then after that enter the panel and flush the cache for CDN and Regis. So must be very integrated. And I needed to have some smooth transition. So the system that I had today must be, my developers can, I would like that my developers can smoothly do the transition to the new system. Well, the code snippet. The first step was create a pattern. So this is the pattern to follow and what we need to execute, what we have now. And then we got all the commands and do the first snippet, which is the first, enable the maintenance mode, even when not required, but it was just to start at the same day. These two E's in the final of the round it means that when the first command is executed well and well finished, then go to the second. And then composer install with no dev when it's production, and then set up upgrade. I compile then the static files. When you use, for example, this -g, this means that you can use many threads in the same time. So depends on your server, you can run until 9 is the maximum. So it will optimize the deploy of the compilation of the static files. And also the compilation of DI and its injection, cache flush. Then I reindex everything and disable the maintenance mode. Well, this was the first snippet created in all the patterns. So it avoids the inconsistency of the running the same command to my developers. The benefits was that I could apply it in the same day. So in the same day, I was able to have at least something. It increased the speed because I created a bash script with this basic code snippets. And then with this execution, I just had to keep an eye on it during the execution and see if everything is working well. But it provides consistency also to my team, but it was not faster enough. It was not faster enough because the downtime keeps there, and then even when not required, and it increased the cost of it. Well, and also this is not totally developer friendly. So my junior developers were not able to run this snippet and then have everything running. Was a little bit afraid yet to run this snippet, and it was not resilient. So if I had, for example, some commands running Magento 2.1 and not 2.2, and I had to change the code, so it was not resilient enough. and also not integrated. So I don't know who is doing the deploy. If the website is down, the UAT environment is down, I had to check the Slack who is doing the deploy. Then it was not so good with the communication. Well, for who wants to start today, after these steps, we developed this script, and this script was very basic script actually, but is at least the minimal resilient enough. So here you can see there's a bash script. I just needed to set the parameters, for example, language, environment. The composer is automatically get the executable file, and also the root folder. So I just put this file in the root folder and execute this. I will provide this slide at the end of this meeting, and with the link to access. And here you have the link of this script too, or it is in my gist too. And then I reset the codes there. And during the composer execution, I can check the environment, if it's production or not. If it's production, I will install with no dev package, and then that's it. It was a little bit more resilient. So let's talk a little bit about the CD and deployment tools. What are the differences and what are the advantages? Well, the continuous deploy, we have some automations, and these automations are most of the time based on branches. So you watch the branch, and then if the branch has some changes, you can run some command. Basically, it's pretty much like is Bitbucket pipelines, GitLab pipelines, or GitHub Actions, or for example, Jenkins too. And usually it is one click to run. And deployment tools. Deployment tools, the good thing is that you can run in your local environment. So you don't need to wait some automatic process to run there in the server or push something to deploy. You can run in your machine. And also it can help the developer to get some extra features. For example, get the database dump and don't need to go there, execute the command to get the striped database dump. And deploy too, so it's a very good advantage. So I was thinking to have both of them in my workflow. About the continuous deploy, you can have GitHub Actions, as I said, Bitbucket pipelines too. You can have Jenkins, which you set up in your environment, in a specific server, and then you can run it's a self-hosted Jenkins, but deploy boot, if you don't know yet, deploy boot is a very good option too. And it is a SaaS system, so it will be running there and it is independent. So GitHub Actions will be from GitHub, Bitbucket pipelines from Bitbucket, from Atlantis company, but deploy boot is independent, which is a good thing because it is very integrated. Well, and the main advantage of GitHub Actions and Bitbucket pipelines, it is good. It provided a good integrations, but with their own systems. So, for example, if you use Bitbucket pipelines like me, you have a good integration with Jira. And it is faster to start because you already have the system there. If you already use Bitbucket pipelines, probably it will be the faster way to start, even if you are using just a simple script. Jenkins, well, I recommend to use Jenkins when you have extensive tests, when you have more than just deploy something. Also when you have many projects, because you can run with a low cost in your server and have the process running, a server running just to build the assets and prepare everything there. And also if you have DevOps in your team. What about deploy boot? Well, a good thing is that this tool is shipped, and also it is very easy to control. So you have a Chrome extension that your PMs can do the deploy just clicking a button. And you can see the result and you can have variations too. and it is independent, as I said. What about deployment tools? Well, about deployment tools, the first option is through the SSH protocol. So you have SCP or rsync. Also, you have Capistrano, and Capistrano is a Ruby-based tool built in Ruby, and it is a very good tool, but I mean, it is not so good to PHP developers because it's not able to, my team was not able to customize or to see what is happening and provide, for example, new features and be more involved in this tool. And I had to customize everything there in the Capistrano to have something work or new features. So it was expensive and not, I didn't have all my team involved in this process. And deployer. Well, deployer is my favorite tool because this tool is made in PHP, and you can see during the deploy the same screen that you have in Capistrano. So you have pretty much the same screen. It's not the exactly same one, but you can see like the app deploy, and then you can see step by step. And if you use, for example, verbose parameter, you can see more specifically what is running and the output of the commands executed there in the server. This is the pipeline deployment workflow and how the Magento recommend to use. So this, as you can see here, we have the development system, the build system, like Jenkins, which prepare your file, for example, DI compilation and also static files compilation, and the production system. So after you prepare everything compiled in your build system, like Jenkins, you can move to your production environment. But it started to be expensive to me to run pipelines. You don't need to have your Magento installed, so you just need to have the code there to compile the files and then to send to production. But it was very expensive to have all the environments preparing the code there and build everything there in Bitbucket pipelines. And it was not in the beginning. We didn't want it to have the Jenkins running in parallel. We wanted to have the Bitbucket pipelines because of the integrations. And we want to compile with the same environment. So the same PHP version, the same architecture, and not to have, for example, some projects were not using Docker. So you had to prepare a Docker with at least just the same PHP version to be running the build system. And the downtime was there yet. And we would like to apply something too small to large projects, not to just to, for example, it was very good to huge projects, but not for a small project to reduce the cost of this project. And so I had to have different strategies to every scenario. And what about zero downtime? When we can have this functionality? Since Magento 2.2, we have some improvements related with the deploy. So we are able to do the deploy with zero downtime when we don't have database changes. So if you run bin/Magento setup DB status, you can see if you have database changes or not. And also, you can run the bin/Magento cron install to have your cron set up in your server, or cron remove to remove the cron on your server. And also you have the bin/Magento config sensitive set to set some configurations specifically to environments. So you can set, for example, the sandbox, the PayPal sandbox to UAT environment, and the production environment, you set the production keys there. So you can have different environments and set up easily in new environments with the UAT configuration. So you can migrate easily. So then I decided to create my own tool because I used the tools available in the market, and also I was using integrated with deployment tools and also with the CD tools too. For example, Bitbucket pipelines, and uses some Capstone recipes and deployer recipes, but it was not what I wanted to my team. I wanted something more resilient. So I decided to create my deployment recipe, and today it had I mean 8.3K downloads, and also it keep the last release, so it is easy to do the rollback, and it is very easy to start. So I create something that my developers can install with just one command to have the deployer executed file in their machine, and also to have the recipe just with one command to install the project with the composer required. But after installed, just a composer install will get this package too. And it is very easy to customize. So my developers can have the freedom to customize some specific projects or suggest something new. And it is just SSH. So it is not something that you need to prepare for example, to install executable file on your server. You can just run a command in your local environment, and because of the script and context of the project, it will execute some commands on your server. And we can have the zero downtime. So the project settings. But to prepare these and have it all set up in my server, I had to have the Git there. And in the Git, I had to add my composer.log file to make sure that all my developers are running with the same package in the projects, and that my UAT environment had the same version of package that my production environment too. Also, I was not versioning the generated files. So some companies keep version the vendor folder, for example, or version the generated folder. But the best process is to avoid to generate to versionate the generated files. So you don't need these files which are generated by the environment, or for example, media files. And not version the media files, as I said. You don't need to have the pub media folder there in your Git. I mean, I'm not saying about Git LFS, but in the general Git, you are using just the files that is the same to set up the project. And also add your auth.json. So the developers that download the project already have the access to the code. So with the same auth.json, it's not it's some permission according with the scope of the project. So it makes sense to have a quick environment set up. And well, the basic step to install is just running this command. The link is in the image too, or in my GitHub is the first repo. And with just one command, you can install deployer, the executable file, and this executed file, you can run just DAP. And the recipe can be installed directly in your project. So we have a question here. Came across an issue, zero ratchets called deadlocks. Okay. Well, about the G1, when used, for example, in some projects, I already had this issue too. I had to configure the env file to run with some specification there to configure. Please send me an email or a tweet. I can send my configuration to Redis that I use in my env file. But basically, doing the tweaks there, you can avoid this. And also, depending on the capacity of their server, I recommend to use -G0 instead of 1. And yeah, when the server has more capacity, you can run with with 9 threads at the same time. Well, this is the step-by-step, how to install, and then how to use. I will show in the next slide, but basically here you can have all the instructions and how the steps. For example, you can just create a deploy.php in your root folder, and there, but in this configuration, you can set your GitHub project or Bitbucket project, your Git repo, your project name to show during the deploy in your terminal or in Slack, and the default stage. For example, staging, here is the stage, but I can use, for example, production, the language, the verbals if you want, but you can specify directly during the execution of the command, your executable file for Magento, for PHP and Composer, and the project configuration. You can have more than one. So I can have, for example, the host, my store, which the host name is that, user is that one, my user, port 22, branch, master, deploy path, the folder, and is production, like true, one, and staging and role master. You can avoid to use if you want these 2 parameters. And then here I use a specific identity file, so I just need to specify here. And I can duplicate these lines to a new one. And here set, for example, is production no and branch develop, and set a different host name or a different deploy path. Well, and here I have the example of this file too. If you wanted to have this this slide, you can see after this meeting, and then you can see the example of everything here. And what are the commands that are available? Nowadays, the deployer recipe that I created have these features. So you have the Magento cache flush, so then you can easily, with just one command, flush the cache to UAT environment or to production environment. You can clean the generated files or compile or run some specific configuration. For example, in that case, I enable the symlinks. And here, for example, you can have the database dump, or you can just backup there. You can deploy the many commands, like, for example, just check the logs and check the exceptions, the bug, the system logs. And you specifying the environment too. Enable or disable the maintenance mode. Do the backup or download the backup to media folder. And here we have 2 customized tasks too, to upskilled theme. So with this command, my team was able to easily get the dump of database, to easily get the logs, also in check the logs, not get the file and then open the file, but just one command and see the last lines of this, the logs of each environment. And also create some different tasks with just 4 lines, create a different task to upskilled theme, and to have the deploy even more optimized. And what are the folders? Basically, in your server today, when you have, for example, the public HTML folder, you have to have a different architecture of the folders. So you have to have the releases folder. This folder will contain each release. Usually I keep just 5 releases, the last 5. After releases folder, you have the shared folder too, with the same architecture that you have inside of Magento root folder. So you're gonna have the public media with those static files there, and media folder and files there. Also, you're gonna have the var folder with sessions, because the sessions, for example, will be shared between all the release, and then you don't lose the sessions when you deploy something, and your user don't see the customers won't see difference. We'll just keep navigating and don't have downtime. And also your public HTML will be overridden by the current folder. This current folder is a symlink to a release folder inside of the releases folder. So you can just move the public HTML to the releases folder and have a symlink created a current folder and point your environment to the determined URL to the current folder, which will be a symlink. And then after that, when you run the deploy again, it is going to get all the shared folders and get the last, create a new release with the last version in your Git, and run the commands to deploy there in the new release folder. And after deploying the static files, compile the for example, dependency injections there, is going to move the shared folder there, and then you have a complete installed Magento, but not interfering with your production environment, production store running. And then it is going to override the symlink, and the new symlink will be the new release. And that's it. This change is very fast. So we just change the symlink and that's it. And what are you gonna expect to be in the shared folder? In the shared folder, we're gonna have these files. In, for example, the session files inside of the session folder in var. So we have the composer home log. We have to have these folders there waiting to be deployed to each release. Or you can set directly in your environment. For example, you can create it specifically to your environment, create in here. Oh, in the same, it is the same for to have environments. It's here, for example, set. You can set some property in global scope, for example, here, or you can set it specifically to each environment. For example, here, you can see the set and set. I can set, for example, this here, the branch master here, and then all my hosts will be using the branch master as default. Or you can override this directly in the host, in the project configuration. So it's very easy to change something, to put something in a determined scope. If I want to have the set language just to English, to this host, and not in general scope, I can set directly here. Or to a specific environment. If I want to have some project in, for example, DigitalOcean and another one in Amazon, I can have with the same configuration file. So it is very resilient, and I can set different parameters, and my team can execute with just one command and don't even need it to know what is the environment, where is the thing there. I just needed to get the SSH key, set the permission in my environment, or share the company SSH key with the new developer, and that's it. After that, all the configuration and the environments are all set in my root folder through my deploy.php file. Well, in how to test after have this installed, I recommend to use adapt SSH, and then with this command, we can access the SSH of the server. So you don't need even to have to keep notes, or use, for example, sometimes using LastPass or some other vault password management system to have all your environment keys and everything that you need there. Sometimes it's good to have there too, but your developers can be a faster way to access the SSH. So the developers can run just on command and access the different environments. Can go to UAT, to stage environment, or production with just one, if authorized, with just one command. And this is very good to test. And how to deploy without releases and symlinks. Some servers, for example, Cloudways, won't allow you to have the releases. And then how you can have this environment to just deploy one release and not have the releases folder with a symlink, or I don't want to have in my installation the symlinks. How can I do? Basically, you can, when you click, for example, in the link before that I showed, there is an example that you just need to put this file, this configuration in the file, in the deploy.php. It can be added in the bottom of the file. So when you set this new configuration, it is going to override the default behavior, and it is going to do the deploy directly to your folder. So if you want to keep using the deploy to your public -HTML folder, you can keep doing it. And I'll also have this automated deploy running through Bitbucket pipelines, for example, or GitHub Actions, and using deployer in your local environment too, all integrated. Just put this comment. So here, basically, what is going on here? So basically, the first comment is deploy info. We'll get the information of your server and make sure that everything is all set to be running. Also, deploy lock. Deploy lock will lock the environment. We'll just create a lock file there to just one developer deploy per time, not having two developers deploying at the same time. And then it is going to run the maintenance mode enable, because in that case, it was created to just have it with some environment limitations. So just put it in maintenance mode, and then will be enough just to start and not to have this resilience just for this example. And also update the Git files. So reset your local your environment there in your UAT environment, for example, and get all the updates. And also run the composer install depending on the server. If it is a production mode, run without the dev dependencies, dev package. Deploying the Magento. Basically, deploy Magento, we run all the commands involved to compilations, and also cache flush, reindex, this kind of commands. And after that, maintenance disable, unlock, and success. Okay, now we have automated to the local environment. We know the tool to create a continuous deploy there, for example, Bitbucket pipelines. And we have the deploy set up in my local environment. My developers do deploy, but I don't have the Slack integration. How can I flush the cache in module, or how can I have more automation on it? So I started to say to my developers to be able to get involved and show to them how easy it is. So to then propose new things and to have them involved with this as part of the evolution of the team workflow. So they were very excited and started to collaborate. So, and suggest new things, which was very great. And then, for example, they suggested to have some composer tasks. For example, this one, it is just PHP. So describe your new task in your deploy.php file, like composer install. The task will be executed through the command composer install. And the function is get isProduction, which is the variable that I set there in the deploy.php file. And then run this command release path Magento dir, which is just slashing this installation, the release path, for example, public HTML. And after well executed, go to the folder, and then composer, which is the bin file with the binary file that can be executed. Install, prefer this, and no dev when it's production. And when not, just install with the developer package. For example, developer package that I'm saying is developer tool. There a developer toolbar, for example, some developer modules to check conflicts, something like that you can implement just to developer environments. Well, and this is the example of the file they're gonna have. And here is the Slack integration. So you just need to put in the end of your file if you want to have the Slack integration, and register your hook, a Slack hook here with set. And then we have this before task to be executed before the deploy and notifying Slack. So before even start, it is going to notify in Slack saying the deploy started by Rafael into U18 environment, for example. And then after, you have the success too. So after the success, which is the last process, as you can see here, the success is the last one. So after the success, show notify success message in Slack. And after deploy failed, in case it failed, we have the Slack notification too. So the developers don't need to remember to say something about, oh, I am doing the deploy to this environment. Don't need to do that. Automatically will be showing Slack. And sometimes I know as a developer, sometimes we forgot to have our over communication and to say something is deploying or not, or that something is happening because we are so focused on to do the code. So it helped my team to be focused on the most which is produce code, and to do creative and strategical things and make sure everything is running. And the communication part and this automatic process that can be automated is automated now. And I have an example of Magento 2 with Bitbucket pipelines and my deployer. So everything that you gonna need if you have the same environment as me. So as you can see here, this is the Bitbucket pipelines file. And here you have, for example, this is just an example. I will open the file with all the files that you need. But here in the pipelines, we're going to have, for example, staging branch. And then the step-by-step will be cache decomposer, package. The artifacts will be in the vendor folder for sure. And then the script will just have the usual process, which is set the auth if it is not there in the project. Also, prepare the SSH key with the permission of these keys, but the key of these commands are here. Just these last 3 lines. Here you can see the curl command, which get the deployer executed file in your Bitbucket machine, and then set a new text. This is a custom text to show in Slack. So the text will be changed to Bitbucket pipelines is deploying the branch staging, for example, in this case, to staging environment. And that's it. And where you can specify, for example, stage environment is directly in your file. So here you can see the host here. So the host, you don't need to set exactly the name, the host. Exactly the host must be here in the host name. But here is the name that you use internally in your company. For example, my new project stage environment, you can set here. And then after that, this added in the bottom of the deploy.php file, and run the simple command deploy dep deploy staging, and that's it. Is the same. This is the same command that your developers can run, dep deploy staging or dep deploy production, and that's it. This is the example that I have in my Gist too. I love to share these new strategies, and so sometimes I put something that can help more developers there in my Gist and my GitHub too. And if you have any suggestion of this script, I accept also, or this deploy too, I accept in the issues. If you have just suggestion or don't want to have a pull request for now or want to create in the future, just add the issue there, and then we can check and create new features for that and keep improving also. Well, here I have the automated deploy using the tools that I use it. So here the commands to set up in your project. As I said, the Bitbucket pipelines file that I set to my project. And then I run to deploy staging. it is an old file. I created this many time ago. I did some just small updates, but I needed to keep improving this. For example, to move the test before the execution of this deploy. But in this case, this is triggered manually, so the deploy is made. If the deploy failed, is a good point. It's a very important point. If the deploy failed during the execution, it is not going to go to production. So if not able to, if the commands didn't complete the compilation of the dependency injections, or also didn't complete the execution of the compilation of static files, it is not going to put in production. So you want to have the bad compilations. What does the command check the logs is the question. So basically this command I can show to you here. Access the GitHub directly. You can check out the commands if you want. Then I will access the profile. And here in the deployer, Magento 2, I have the recipes. And this file basically get with tail the logs and get the last lines of the file. So show to you the last lines, and you don't need to go through the SSH and go to the root folder of your project or find it, and then run the tail in -n number of lines, and then the file, specified file. You just need to run one command or have already in the history of your terminal and do very easy. So this is the command. Basically, when you run, for example, Magento log debug, it's going to run and write also in your terminal, not just run the command, the output of this command. This is, as you can see, this is inside of the shared folder. So the logs are shared through the releases. So you don't lose the logs when you deploy something. You don't lose your media folder sessions or log files. Or you can also clean the logs if you don't want anymore. If you want a new release and with all the logs clean, you can run just this command too. Well, and here in this case, I have the manually trigger the tests. So for example, the test to copy paste detector, to code sniffer, and different tests, and also the deploy to production environment. Well, the link is in the slides too. And how to deploy to Magento Commerce Cloud? Well, to deploy to Magento Commerce Cloud, in the beginning, before the automated process there to be so mature, we were starting to do the deploy through the deployer too. But nowadays it's very easy to integrate, to have the deploy automated with your Bitbucket, for example, in Magento 2 Commerce Cloud. So to huge projects, I recommend you to have your tests in, for example, Jenkins or Bitbucket pipelines directly testing your code if you want. In my case, I use Grunt PHP, but this is to another meeting, to how to use Grunt PHP to test. But I use to test, and Magento Commerce Cloud, I use the native integration. So how to integrate? To integrate, you just need to set up the Magento Cloud CLI in your machine and then set up your project. After that, you need just to create, for example, this file if you are using Bitbucket. If not, it is a different file, but it is in the dev docs. And after creating this file, you need to create a new API consumer inside of your Bitbucket and put the credentials here, the repo, the key, and secret key. And after creating this file, you add in your Bitbucket also a webhook. to your Magento Cloud instance. And then through your CLI, you create a new branch, which you will create a new environment there in Magento Cloud. And that's it. After these 4 steps, you can test. It is very easy. And after you push something to your master branch, for example, it is going to deploy to your production environment automatically. We keep having the downtime, but the downtime is very minimal, even when you have database changes there. And if you want to automate even more, I didn't test it yet, but you can use the Magento CLI to run this command instead of having, for example, the deploy running the bin/Magento. You can prepare some tasks to run specifically the Magento Commerce Cloud CLI. And after test, you're going to have the environment running and the Bitbucket pipeline integration all set. And what about Magento? It's the last step. Now I have the communication. I have the through Slack. Well, I have the integration and to provide my developers an easy way to start. Even my junior developers can deploy something today, and very confident because they just run that deploy stage environment, and every time see the deploy running very fast. So, but every developer need yet to go through the panel and clean everything there. How it can be optimized? Well, basically, I create a new recipe. And then with this new recipe, you were able to run the commands directly there in Magento Stratus, for example. Or you can create a new recipe to a new environment too. So through this new deployer recipe, you just need to install in the same way. And then you have these commands. You can initialize your outscaling. You can clean the cache there, the cloud front cache, the app cache, the Redis and Varnish with just these commands. So if I run, for example, dep mm and then cache clean, all my clean is clean in the default environment. If my default environment is staging, it's going to be clean there. If not, if I specify, for example, production, dep cache clean production, it is going to clean everything of my cache there in production problem. And to add this in my deploy.php file in the root folder of my project, I just needed to add the Magento module recipe here with this line. And then in the end of the file, I just needed to specify here after success, or it means after the deploy being successfully finished, outscan the service we need. So to restart and prepare everything to the outscaling. And that's it. When I execute, it is automatically integrated with the Magento environment. Thank you very much. If anyone have any question, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Rafael. I hope we have a couple of questions in the Q&A section.
Nice. I already answered the 2 first questions during the meeting, but the last one is a feedback. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I'm very happy to see that my tool is helping more than my team is helping more developers around the world. Thank you very much. Okay, well, if the Magento is not installed yet, I needed to change this because I was running this with the projects already installed and not to prepare from scratch a new environment, which will be very awesome. It will be very good to have. So yeah, basically you needed to set up the environment there and then be able to execute the commands. Nowadays you cannot just run the command and then set up the environment. Any questions? Is another website. If the Jenkins is their server and Magento is another website, will deploy strategy with the deploy will work? With this tool will work? Yes. If I understood here this question, if the Jenkins is the search server and Magento is another website, yeah, you don't have a problem to have this with the Jenkins as a search server. It's not a problem. You can have different, for example, servers or different source of files too. You can have these executed by Jenkins too. You can have the deployer too executed there inside of Jenkins. And yeah, it's not a problem. It's very well integrated, these tools. Thank you very much, Diego. And thank you. Do you have any question? Okay. More questions?
So I believe like we have a question from Sangal. So I came across an issue with -j greater than 1 if using Redis, which caused deadlocks. Has this been resolved?
Well, in this scenario, we need yes. We use it when I had this issue. I specify not one, the -g. I specify 0. Sometimes it is the same. You are going to use just one thread. But after that, also, I specify directly in my env file. I change it there, the specification for Redis to avoid the deadlock. So basically, it is the configuration, the env file. In this env file, you can just check the configuration there inside of your Redis configuration, and to avoid this issue. If you send me a tweet or email, I can send my configuration as an example, and then you can set up your environment too.
What is the command checksum log? So that's a question.
Okay. To check the logs, you are going to check just the last lines of the file. So it is going to run the run and then tail -n, and it is going to show to you the last line of the log files. And yeah, and then you can clean the logs too.
And how to use this deployer method if Magento is not installed using Composer?
If it's not using Composer, I just remove the Composer install in the deploy tasks. So as I showed, you can customize the routine to run all of the deploy commands. So even, for example, the lock in the beginning of the deploy sentence, the deploy order there in the architecture of the to prepare the server, basically, you can avoid to run the Composer command. So you can run directly the Magento, the deploy Magento, instead of having the Composer execution.
Great. Okay, so guys, like if you have any questions, probably you can use the Q&A section in the bottom panel of your Zoom. Okay, so that's awesome. Thank you so much, Rafael, for your insightful session. I hope like so it be a value-added session for all the Magento aspirants and the enthusiasts across the globe. And obviously, it's gonna be very helpful. And it's glad to see like your tool has been used widely in the globe. So that's really amazing. And thank you so much. And before ending this session, like I would like to to showcase like who's our next Magento master, like who will be presenting in our Magento Master Virtual Series Ash 7. So let me share my screen. Okay, that said, like we have Sandra Mangle, and he's an e-commerce solution architect, and he's a Magento master, and he'll be addressing on closing the circle of quality on Magento projects. So that said, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Rafael, for spending your valuable time and allocating your valuable time for the Magento enthusiasts for share your knowledge. And I hope like it's going to, it was a really helpful session for everyone. And so until then, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rafael.